Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Arch Study of You. I am your host, Cameron Gilmore. I have an absolute treat. This is the first time I ever had talked to an athlete that represents our country. Taylor Winnett. But before you get into the hows and the whys and who you are, tell me, how did you feel when you heard that you're on the 2023 National Paralympic swim team?
Honestly, I cried like a baby. I made my national B team status in October last year at a swim meet in Mexico. And honestly, the race wasn't good. My goggles fell off. I was very angry and I touched the wall and looked up and I got my cut by almost a second and I was just like bawling. And it just was exhilarating knowing like I missed this cut 4 months ago and like I tried so hard, like so much training, and it finally paid off. So like I'm definitely a crier and I own that, you know, I'm very emotional. So lots of hugs with my teammates, lots of crying, and there's just a sense of pride knowing like my country cares enough to put my name out there and like support me. And that's still something I'm learning to like embrace and accept, like kind of that status almost. But yeah, no, it was great.
Okay, so take me through that process. You're swimming in probably a heat that you're very comfortable with. Your goggles fall off. You're like, crap. What does your mind do at that exact moment when your goggles come down and you still are not even by touching the wall?
So I like how my brain works when I swim is I pick a song to like race to. And I forget which song it was, but like last year, a big one was like Zero to Hero from Hercules. I don't know why. And then usually it's some kind of Taylor Swift song. So like I have that song going on the blocks and I like dive in. And then right away, like it was the dive that caused the goggles to fill up with water. And my first reaction is, please do not let my contacts fall out. Cause I have like 2800 vision without my contacts. So like I would have issues possibly going into the wall, and I was swimming butterfly. So if I don't touch with two hands and like, you know, I don't want to face plant in the wall, but if I don't touch with two hands, I can get DQ'd. So I'm like, please don't let them fall out. And if it does, like my one eye is stronger than the other. So let it be my weaker eye. And, you know, kind of like almost like a panic. And sometimes that can be good because of the adrenaline. And other times that can be really bad because I start like freaking out, like second guessing myself. Am I swimming right? Like I can't see anything. But it worked out. So it was good, I guess.
So you had adversity right from the get-go. It wasn't like halfway through, wasn't like, oh, we're almost to you dive in and your goggles fill up with water.
Yeah, it made me angry. And I've had a coach tell me before, Taylor, you need to be more angry when you swim. Like, cause I'm, you know, like I got Taylor Swift going, like 400 free distance. I'm like, la, 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 like backstroke, la, la, la. And my old coach, Tommy, is like he is, you can just tell, like, he just like, it looks like he's like just stabbing the water. And I'm very like, yay. So it worked. I channeled like my anger and frustration. I was like, this is the last day, my second to last event. I have to like put out in this race, or else if I don't get that cut, I'm not going to be on the B team. So I kind of like used that anger and worked through it. But I was surprised when the race ended. It did surprise me because usually like I'm used to like something I'm trying to work on mentally. I underestimate like my value as a person sometimes. And I'm used to like expecting failure basically. So that's something random that I'm just trying to work on in general, you know, is more confident in my races. Like I'm doing great. This is awesome. I usually try to like pick myself apart. So.
Wait, time out. You're an Olympic athlete, right? A Paralympic athlete. You're a swimmer. And yet you're still struggling to have confidence in it. You're on the team. Like you've made the 2023 team. Like I don't understand. Like, how could you not be confident in what you are, in your abilities? Is it just, I don't know. Is it just weird to think that you're on the team? Do you struggle with thinking that you're good enough to swim next to people? Like, help me understand, like, what do you mean by you just aren't there yet? It's something you're working on. I need to give a shout out to my biggest sponsor, Warrior Energy Drink. The reason why we partnered together is because we have the same mindset, with the same drive. We're for the people. We're about the people. Look, Warrior Energy Drink has 0 sugar options, and they got water as well. Low calories, great taste, very affordable, no crash, big energy fast, high in B vitamins, awesome design, culture design, 160 milligrams of caffeine. Other energy drinks have way too much, and they're always giving it back to their community. They're paying it forward. Partner with them, guys. Click the link below. Go get yourself your own Warrior Energy Drink and go crush today.
Yeah, so it's multifaceted. It's pretty complex, but I feel like throughout kind of major milestones in my life, I expected things to happen and they didn't. I forget the psychological term for it, but I kind of like go into the year like, these are my goals, but like if I don't make them, I'll have to be okay. You know, like I'll get through it. And like I kind of don't always expect success. I work really hard, but I'm just used to having an injury or a surgery, and it takes that away. So like I try to have the mindset like, oh, if it doesn't happen, it's not a big deal, when really it is a really big deal to me. And then the other aspect is, you know, we have some very seasoned veterans on our national team who've been to like multiple Paralympics, multiple gold medals. Like they're sponsored by Toyota and Visa and like these big names. And, you know, I'm still newer to the sport. I'm younger. And it's kind of like, do I deserve to mesh in with these people? Kind of like from a maturity standpoint. Because like I try my best to really treat everyone equally, like a brand new swimmer, like if they're 10 or if they're 30 or if like they're a Paralympian, I try my best to be like, let's be friends. But that's not how the world works. That's not how sponsors work. Usually they want you to have certain medals, certain, you know, like clout basically. And I'm just not really there yet in my career. So yeah, no, I do struggle with that. Like, do I belong here? And another random thing that also is, you know, I acquired my disability. We have people on our team, that's how they were born. That's all they know. And like, it's been almost 7 years now, and it's getting harder for me to remember life before having a broken back. But like, you know, I feel like I need to earn my right to be a disabled athlete, because some people, it's just different. I don't know. It's a different perspective, and I think it's cool. Like I love hearing people with congenital disabilities, how it works. Cause like I have a friend with one arm and he can tie his shoes, and like I didn't learn how to tie my shoes till middle school, and I still don't do it the right way, but he can tie his shoes with one hand, and it's like, that's really cool. So yeah.
Hey everybody, I want to take this quick second here. A lot of you have asked me, what journal do I use? My family use? Simple, this journal right here. See, my buddy Craig Smith has spent years and years developing a journal that takes everything that's up in here and puts it on paper so we can be edified and grow. So if you don't know what to write about, which oftentimes happens, he gives you ideas. And if you want power statements, things that say, I am this, he gives you those ideas. Now, when you look at on one page, it says, this is what I'm accomplished, this is what I am statements, and there's a quote every single day that you get to write on and focus on. The second page is write your daily thoughts, get it out of your head, put it on paper to be the best version of yourself. The link's down below. Listen, I get no money for this. It's just, I believe in this journal. I love this journal. It's changed my life, my family's life. And if you want, it'll change your life as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Guys, go back and do me a favor. If you're watching this or listening to this through like Spotify or Apple or some of the other stream ones, go and watch this little clip, the last 2-3 minutes, and watch as Taylor she recalls all of this emotion, all of these raw emotions, and just see the energy change and transform on her, because it's still super very raw for her. It's very raw because she's still trying to muster up that confidence. She's a Paralympic athlete. It's just the highest level of athleticism globally to go try to make it to Paris to represent the United States of America. And yet she still struggles with some things. I want to ask this question. I was going to ask this later on down in the interview, but let me ask this up front. You'd said something that you had expected failure because of something would happen and then a setback, and then something would happen good and then another setback. Take us through, and you said you had it's been 7 years since your broken back. Take us through this process of how you got to become a Paralympic athlete. Take us through that. I want to hear this journey. I've heard this, but I need everybody to hear this journey of where you were and how we got to arrive to where you are today.
Yeah. So I'm going to try my best to condense this because there's so much.
Look, we got plenty of time. We got plenty of time, so don't worry.
Yeah. So I grew up able-bodied presenting. And what I mean by that is after I broke my back, I was actually diagnosed with a genetic condition. So technically I was born with it, but we didn't know till I was like 18 or 19. But in general, like from infancy to elementary school, I had a pretty normal life. Like the only really weird thing is when I was 1, I dislocated my shoulder. But other than that, pretty normal. And I started swimming when I was 4, and I have pictures of me. I'm probably less than 1 year old with water wings just in the deep end by myself. Cause like this was 1999. And, it's not like 30 years before that where like babies didn't even have car seats, but like in the 90s, we were more not as, at least my parents, they wanted us to be independent. So like they would I wanted to swim, so they'd yeet me in the pool. So I started swimming when I was 4, and my mom started swim coaching around 20. And honestly, like I just grew up at the pool. It was basically like free childcare. I joke about that, but like the lifeguards did not like me because I was kind of annoying, but like I was there all the time. I'd either be swimming or playing, and that's just how it worked. And my older sister was a swimmer as well, and so was my younger sister. So we were just kind of like this aquatic family. And in middle school, I started to fall apart, basically. So many shoulder injuries, hip injuries. I was just in physical therapy. Like they had a special program for me at Dreyer Physical Therapy in Hershey because I was there so often. Like they literally gave my mom a discount because it was like, your child is defective. But we didn't connect all the pieces yet. But yeah, no, I bless those people. They saw me go through like all my phases of like adolescence, and I was a mess. But yeah, no, I kept getting injuries. And then I'll just be honest. I'm sorry if this grosses people out, but like my digestive system doesn't work very well. So I would get constipated a lot. And that was another symptom of my Ehlers-Danlos that we didn't connect the dots. But like I have a lot of memories of like crying and my parents trying to force feed me laxatives. Like it was bad. And then my parents got divorced. So my dad moved to Maryland, and we're still in Pennsylvania. And then they got back together. So I was forced to move to Maryland. And my dream in life, like my big goal in life, I wanted to swim at a D1 college and become a doctor. Like that was like my perfect fantasy, and neither worked out really. My senior year of high school, I committed to swim at Loyola, which is a D1 college, Loyola University, Maryland. It's in Baltimore. And I had 2 really big life-altering accidents. And one of them, in the early fall, I actually flipped a jet ski. And we were riding these waves, and I was a thrill seeker. I'm still a thrill seeker, but knowing how accident prone I am, I'm a little more like contained. But me and my friend, he had 3 brothers, 4 boys, and I went through each of them, and we would go up to the Naval Academy on the jet ski and then come back. And I was on the last brother, but the second oldest, and we found this big boat, and we were like jumping the waves, and it was really fun. And I was like, let's go higher. So I like, you know, gunned it, and we got some good air, and then it hit the water and it like flipped on top of us. But it like my bottom hit the seat and like we were thrown from it.
Ooh.
And I just turned to Matt and I was like, bro, like I hurt my back really bad. Like something's wrong. Let's go home. So my neighbor and his boat actually helped us flip it back because we couldn't get it to be like the right whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we go back and we're cleaning up, and I went to put a paddleboard away and I actually slipped and fell on the dock too. So that's just my life for you. And at the time, because of all the injuries I've had, all the physical therapy, my dad, you know, he was very concerned for me, but the execution of it did not vibe with me because I was a teenager. But he basically told me, like, if you get injured again, I'm not paying for your swimming. So I was like, great. So any injury I kind of got since that conversation, I would hide from him. So I kind of just casually, I was like, hey, dad, hey, mom, like, I don't think I can go to school. Like my back hurts so bad. I actually slept on the floor that night, and I just really downplayed it. I didn't want to cause any alarm for them. But I was struggling so bad. Like I wasn't even making it through like a warm up for practice with my team. And I just had memories of like crying. Like I've cried so many times at the pool. Like I would just lay on the pool deck and just cry and like whine to my coach, like, this is bad. And like I told her the situation, and she's like, you need to tell your parents how bad it is. And I was like, but I want to swim. And she's like, Taylor, like you're suffering. So I did some physical therapy, got an MRI, and I kind of like damaged the discs in my lower back. So they weren't fully herniated. They were just like bulging. But it was L4 to L5, then L5 to S1, which is really, really low in your back. So yeah, no, ever since then, like, it's just, my life has been pain. But a couple months later, I was in calculus class and I made another poor decision. I was on crutches because I bruised my foot doing like a circus thing with my dog. Like my dog was a puppy. And like, when I look back on it, like, I was not the smartest person. And she loved to run around the house and like jump over things. So I put my leg out and she was like jumping over my leg, and it was like, oh, it's a circus, whatever. And her like breastbone like hit right around my ankle, and it like bruised the bone. So I was on crutches. And you know how like a computer chair, like it kind of swivels just a little bit and it has like the rollers on the bottom.
Yeah.
So calculus class, the love of my life, the best subject you could ever force someone to take. That class, just high school and college, it was traumatizing. But so I was like, you got the wall here, and he like taped up integrals in the hallway. And, you know, I was on crutches. So we just brought out this chair, and I was like on my knees, writing on the back of it, like trying to solve like these integrals, which I still don't really understand. And somebody like spooked me, and I'm a very jumpy person. Like I've always been my whole life. And so I kind of like grabbed the sides of the chair and then like lost my balance and like fell off it. And that was how I broke my back. I fell out of the chair. Through paraswimming, I met like really very unique, interesting stories of like perseverance and life and death situations. But my spinal injury was from falling out of a chair, and I own that because that's just the way my life goes, and it just makes sense because that's Taylor. And yeah, no, so I sat there a couple minutes, and I was like, I think I was just kind of like in shock, like the adrenaline, like I didn't want to like bawl in front of like my peers and my teacher. And my teacher actually made like my classmates like go away because like he could tell I was like freaking out, I guess. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, no. And they went and got a wheelchair. And then my dad came and picked me up and took me, you know, to go get imaging. And they were like, okay, you know, we can see the fracture here. Yeah. So they gave me, I had like this black back brace, and I was different than kind of other spinal injuries because mine was not a displaced fracture. So like a displaced fracture is like if you were to fracture your arm, kind of like the bone, you could see it, or it's like out of your skin. So it's almost like I've seen MRIs of people with displaced spinal fractures, and it is like your back is like in two pieces, basically.
Oof.
And mine was not like that. So I'm really lucky that I did not need like emergency surgery because we didn't know I had Ehlers-Danlos at the time. And that kind of adds a bunch of surgical complications. So I got some more MRIs. You know, I'm doing physical therapy. I had to drop out of school because I was having issues walking, pain. And, you know, they said, okay, you got that fracture. You herniated those 2 discs that were bulging from the jet ski. And then I also have a tarlar cyst kind of in the S2 region of my back. And I have some other junk going on as well now. I cannot pronounce it for the life of me. It's like spondylolisthesis. I can't help it. But now like my bones are like shifting in my back, almost like they're slipping through it's just, and then I've always, ever since that injury, I've had like a stress reaction on my x-rays. Like my bones are almost like, I think it's called hypertrophy. Like there's just, they can tell there's inflammation. So my back's very angry. And the next 6 months after that were probably the worst 6 months of my entire life. I couldn't sleep well, or I'd sleep too much, and just the pain was so bad. So after about 6 months, like I was kind of ready to like kill myself. Kind of want to put like a trigger warning out there, but like it just was really bad. I dropped out of school. I was sort of dating a guy right before I broke my back, and it was around homecoming. And he basically told me like, hey, Taylor, since you can't walk anymore, like I don't want to hang out with you anymore. So like that sucked. And I had to call Brian and decommit. He's the coach at Loyola. I called him. I'm like, hey, like my back, it's just, I can't. So I had to decommit from college. And I kind of just got in this headspace like, okay, I'm disabled. No one's going to want to marry me. How am I going to get pregnant one day? Like, how am I even going to be a mom? Because like I can barely function like as is. And I just thought like, I can't be a doctor. Nobody's going to want to marry me or find me attractive. So like, one day I bought a bunch of sleeping pills and I was like, okay, like time to die. Like, I don't know. I cope with my trauma by like joking, but like, it's not funny. If you ever feel that way, like, please get help. I didn't. I kept it a secret from my family. It's weird. It's weird for me to think about sometimes. Cause like, if I did make that decision that day, like I wouldn't be here. Like I wouldn't have my husband. But I was in my room that day and, you know, I popped them all out and they were purple and I was kind of like playing with them, like looking at these pills. And I was like, this is the only answer I can find, you know? And I then thought about my dog and my younger sister. And I'm like, well, what if she's the one to find me? Like for me to put that burden on her the rest of her life, like I could not do that. And like, I do not recommend you dispose your medication like this. I just went outside and threw them all in the woods. So like, I hope no animal ate those or something. Like I was not like obviously in a proper mindset to think of my actions. And I started doing like anonymously, I did group therapy. I didn't tell my parents or my family about like, I consider it an aborted suicide attempt because I did put some in my mouth, but I spit them out. But I still kept it a secret. And so I told them I'm going to youth group. So I went to like this anonymous, and it was for people with depression, anxiety, and bipolar. And I kind of just went in there and I was like, you know what, guys? I am a teenager. I use a cane to walk. My back hurts so bad. Like I hate my life. And that's what I needed at the time. And it really helped me. So college started and, you know, I go to college and at the time, my back was so angry. I had really bad nerve pain and sciatica and I couldn't sit for long periods of time. So I had like these butt pillows. So like I'd walk around, I got my cane, my back brace, and my butt pillows. And like, that kind of opened me up to some ridicule, but Those things are the best. I love, like, my Tempur-Pedic butt pillows were amazing. If you have any kind of like hip issues or back issues, like those really helped me. So college started, and at the time I still wanted to be a doctor. And, you know, freshman year was pretty rough because it was still like my injury was so new. And I had school, I had physical therapy, and like they wanted me to do inpatient physical therapy to help with my walking, but like I just couldn't do it because like I decided to go to like this bougie private college. So I also had to work. And yeah, they wanted to do some investigation. Like, why did this young woman who, you know, the jet ski happened, but 2 falls, why that's not normal to break your back? So they actually did a bone scan on me too, just to see like if I had some weird like osteoporosis or something, but it was normal. And then they started like digging in my medical history, and they were like, okay, well, since middle school, she's had GI issues. She's had a lot of joint issues. Maybe there's something else going on. So at Hopkins, and it's crazy when you think about it, I had to wait like over a year for this doctor's appointment to meet with a geneticist. Like the wait time is crazy. And I went in, and it was like a 2-hour long appointment. They went through all my medical history, like my family's medical history. And then they just did all these weird tests. Like they measured how long my tongue was, like how far apart my eyes are. And they were trying to see if I had Marfan's versus EDS. And after all the testing and stuff, they're like, yep, you have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And that's basically a connective tissue disease where my body just doesn't like synthesize collagen correctly. And it manifests in people really weirdly. So like my major issues are I partially dislocate my shoulders a lot. I've had issues with almost every joint in my body, but my big 3 are like my shoulders, my wrists, and probably my hips. And then my GI issues. So like, great. Okay. More issues with my body. Like, love to see it. Let's just keep piling it on, you know, like I still was not in a good mindset. I was like, great. Now I'm like a double cripple. And some people, I apologize if that's derogatory. Sorry. But yeah, so life started to get a little better. I started to do sports and kind of para sports because the coach at Loyola, Brian, he saw me swim one day, and he was like, hey, Taylor, like you told me, you know, you have a spinal injury and some other stuff going on. Have you heard of Paralympic swimming? And I was like, what? Like I swam from 4 to 17, like pretty legitly. And I didn't even know the Paralympics existed. So I was like, huh, let's look into it. You know, maybe this is another avenue where like I can get a sense of my old self back, because like at the point, the only thing I felt like I could still do like a normal person was basically drive. And I drive with my left foot now instead of my right because I have more feeling in it. Great. So like I started to get all my paperwork compiled, and I went down to go get classified. And at the time, like I said, I really struggled with sitting, and we drove from Maryland to Georgia the day of my appointment. So like I walk in and I'm just in a lot of pain. And part of it is they need to test the range of motion of my lower limbs because my disability is my lower body, and then do muscle testing. And at the time, you know, they're wagging around my legs or whatever, and I'm like wincing, and I'm like, this hurts. And, you know, they're like, okay, well, for your safety, like we're going to stop this appointment. Cause like they were worried physically hurt me. And so I was a mess after that. Like I cried a lot, you know, I'm like, wow, like this was going to be my big shot, and it's been taken from me. Like I should have, you know, drove the day before, or like took a shower or done something. And they decided, since I have Ehlers-Danlos, which is not a Paralympic eligible condition, but also my spinal injury, they sent my paperwork to the IPC in Germany, which is the International Paralympic Committee. And that took a while, and they looked it over, and they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to let you swim because we can differentiate the weakness and numbness you have from the spinal injury from your EDS. So great. So I went and got classed again, and that was awesome. Like in May of 2019, that's when my Paralympic swimming really started. And then in July that year, a part of my stomach actually burst. And so I was in the hospital for a week. I almost died. That really sucked. That was so bad. I perforated my duodenum. So that I didn't realize in the moment how serious it was, because like I thought I was dying, like I was throwing up blood and like I couldn't move. And like I went to the hospital and they didn't like take care of me for like, my sense of time is not good and when I'm in a lot of pain, but it felt like a good hour. Like I was laying on this gurney next to this older gentleman, and I'm like rolling around, like I was low-key hysterical. And then they're like, we don't have enough beds, so let's just put you in the hallway eventually. And because my parents thought about maybe doing suing my doctor about like how they went about it, it didn't happen. But they started pushing morphine and then Dilaudid. They did the CT and they're like, oh yeah, you got like air and fluid like all around your liver. It's like all the way down in your right lower quadrant. So they basically, like, I apologize if this is vulgar, but they like filleted me like a fish. Like my incision is like right below my belly button up to like where my rib cage is. And they like cleaned me out or whatever. So I'm in the hospital for a week. And then I like could not function really for 3 weeks. And after all my staples were taken out, like, great, I can swim again. So I started swimming again. Death averted, yay. November came around and I did a swim meet, and that's when I first got like my national team emerging cut. And how US Paralympic swimming works is you got A, B, C emerging. And it was in 50 free. And at that meet, I had a friend who also broke her back who retaught me how to do starts. So it's like a really fond memory of mine. And I swam the 50 free. I touched a wall. I got the cut. I start crying hysterically. And like the one coach told me, like, Taylor, like people can't tell if you're happy or sad. So you need to calm down, because like people might think you're hurt. Because like I'm like, ah. And that's kind of when I thought like, hey, this might be an avenue for me. Like I might be able to make this, like I might be a legit swimmer again. So I started training more, and since my duodenum perforated, that's pretty rare for the type of Ehlers-Danlos I have. I have the hypermobile type, and organ rupture is more common in vascular. So I got tested for that. Before that happened, I said, okay, if this is positive, I'm going to get sterilized, I'm going to drop out of college, and I'm going to get married and adopt babies, because vascular EDS, your life expectancy is around 40-ish. So I was like, great, my life's halfway over maybe. And it came back negative. But still, I was like, well, what if I want to be a stay-at-home mom and have a lot of babies anyway, And what if I don't really want to be a doctor anymore because all my health issues, and I still struggle with standing and sitting for long periods of time. So I decided I'm not going to go to med school. And then my senior year of college is also when my dad died. He died. And then I also got married. So like my senior year of college was like a whirlwind, and like COVID happened, and I graduated in 2021. So COVID, that was 2020-ish. And so I really started committing to swimming after then, like getting really into it. And last year after I graduated, I got a job kind of like as a caseworker. And you have to get nationally and internationally classified for paraswimming. And what that basically is, like I explained in my classification, you go in, they look over your medical documents, they test your muscle strength or range of motion or whatever your disability is, and then they give you a number. And I got an international classification slot last year. And this is really big. Like you need this to go to any international meet, like any world championships, anything. So I told my job that I'm like, I'm going to have to take a whole week off for this. And they told me, well, you don't have enough PTO. And I was like, okay, well, can I take unpaid time off? And they said no. So I had to decide, am I going to quit my job to try to swim or keep working? And, I'm very thankful for my husband, because without him, I wouldn't have been able to make that decision. And so I quit my job, and that was very anxiety inducing for me. Went in, I got classed. And ever since then, I've just been swimming a lot, really kind of committing my life to these next 2 years till Paris in the fall next year to swimming. It's awesome. I love it. I never thought that being a professional athlete was an option for me, but it's something, I've wanted to do since I was little. I love to swim. Being disabled now, there's a lot more challenges than when I'm able-bodied. But that was a really long synopsis of kind of my life story. But that's how I'm here today.
Holy freaking cow. I cannot believe, guys. At no point did I want to cut you off. This is probably the first interview that I've done that I'm like, I'm not cutting you off. I can't cut you off. You just run. You just go. You just run. There is so much to unpack. I mean, so much to unpack. First off, I have to say this because I know there's people that we're in 9 countries. 9 countries are going to listen to this, and we're all going to say the same thing. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts that you never, ever went through with killing yourself. Thank you. You are a living testament to show people that yes, you can get to the brink of where you feel like your life, and you have every clout, you have every check mark to say, yeah. If you would have killed yourself, you've been like, I can't do this anymore. The pain, the hurt, where I was at. I was going to a D1 school to fulfill a dream to become a doctor, to swim. I now am in a cane. I'm now walking around with a butt pillow. I now have all these issues. No one's going to want me. I'm a freak walking through, and I apologize for saying this, but I'm a freak basically walking through college, as you call it, a bougie college. And then you're sitting there and you're playing around with them. You're contemplating, what should I do? And your first thing you think, my can't let my sister see me like this. What if she's the one who sees me? There are millions of people globally that are able to make that distinction between no and yes, to move forward or stop, to know that their life has more of the purpose than where you are today. From your accidents, from breaking your back to falling off to being classed as where you are. I mean, I cannot believe this. Then you go to college and you're like, man, I guess your coach is like, hey, shout out to the Loyal swim coach. Thank you for speaking up and saying, go swim, try it. Then you're like, man, now I got to make another big decision. I just got a job. They're not going to give you have no PTO. They're not going to pay you unpaid time off. You'd make a decision. Do I swim or do I have a job? And then you swim. And now you are where we are. Now we see you today as this individual who never gave up. You had every right you could have. Every right. You could have just been like, forget it. Throw your hands up. Screw life. Life has given me nothing but rotten lemons up to this point. Oh my freaking gosh. Guys, go back and watch that. Go back and if you're on YouTube, you can see it. But if you're not, you need to go to it and watch her. The countenance, you go from disparaged to the end of the world to who we see today, getting ready to compete for the Paralympics. And then you get married, thinking you never would get married, and now you're married and your dad dies. Oh my gosh. This I need to check my heart after this. This is unbelievable, Taylor.
Yeah, sometimes when I look back and my memory from kind of the divorce, the trauma, the depression and the pain, my memory's not the best. But every once in a while I'll call my older sister and I'll be like, do you remember when this happened when we were growing up? That's not normal. I do that. It helps me sometimes not to dwell on the past. Because the mindset I had back then, in high school, I felt like I deserved things from my parents. I feel like I was very selfish and very just entitled. I grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where the majority of people are middle or high middle class, white people, and kind of moving to Maryland, especially in Baltimore, that really helped me, be grateful for what I have and be more inclusive and more, just even racially, I grew up around white people and I had one friend on the swim team who was African American and that was it. But yeah, no, the mindset I had back then was just so bad, especially around my back. And I still get in places like that. Yesterday, cried a little bit in the car because like I had a really bad pain day and like a lot of stress has been going on this week. So it's not every day's like rainbow and butterflies, but like I became a Christian a couple years ago and like that's helped me so much too, you know, like this world's not my home. Like I'm here to make it a better place, be more like Jesus, but like I have hope in his resurrection. And like after I die, you know, like I know that this is not the end all be all for me. So like if something were to happen, I get another injury, I can't swim, or, you know, whatever happens, like being a Christian also helps as well. Cause, you know, I brought up having a bunch of babies and stuff. My husband and I just decided last month, like, unless something really big happens with my back or EDS treatment, like we're not going to have biological kids. And like, you know, last month I kind of had a mini breakdown, you know, making dinner. And I was like, I don't think my body can have a child. Like, I just don't think I can do it. And like, I was a hot mess. And, you know, random tangent, but just being disabled has impacted so many facets of my life. I like, if you told me like the second I fell out of that chair, like you're probably not going to have biological kids, you know, like yada, 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 like list off what I all just shared. Like, I'd be like, bro, what, like this, you think, you know, people fall all the time. And like, that's kind of where I make fun of myself. Like what a loser way, you know, to become disabled. Like, I don't want to invalidate other people's experiences, but like, I know some people who've like survived super like skydiving accidents or like wrecks, and like it's very traumatic and scary. But like me, it's just like the girl whose collagen doesn't work and you fell out of a chair. Like, woo, yay. Sorry, my husband just came home from work.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because you say I hear what you're saying. Like, I hear what you're saying. But on the other side, on this side of me, I'm like, what are you talking about? Look, guys, she is an American record holder. In what event?
50 back.
An American record holder, a broken back, surgeries, and yet listen to what she's saying. She's like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The journey you have been through, that you're going through. Listen to her. She said, not every day it's not all roses and rainbows. She still has pain. She still struggles with trauma. So let's call it what it is, right? It's mental trauma. There's still, I mean, you heard her. She had a breakdown because she couldn't have biological children. She just was like, my body is not going to be able to do it. Guys, yet on the outer, what we see is an American Olympic holder. We see someone who is on the 2023 National Paralympic swim team, someone who is competing to swim in the 2024 Paris Paralympic Games. We see her all over representing the greatest country on this earth. And yet she still is human enough to recognize when she's having great days and when she's having good days. Because there's no bad days. There's never a bad day. There's great days and good days. Firmly believe that. And now she injects God into her life, and now she's like, with God, all things are possible. When I've been resurrected, I'll have a perfectly restored body in its perfect frame. It's so amazing what you've been able to accomplish, and you're still so freaking young. Come on.
I don't feel it. I really like, I think I make people like offended sometimes because I'll be 24 in a couple months. But like when at my job, a lot of social workers are kind of, I don't want to stereotype them, but they're usually like middle-aged women. I feel so old. Like my back, I joke, I have the back of like a 50-year-old man. Like I have arthritis. Like I can tell when it's going to rain. Like my back hurts so bad when it's raining. So like, I think as well, just all the things that happened in my life when I was younger kind of made me grow up faster. Mm-hmm. Which I think I'm very immature, if I'll be honest. Like I I laugh. I babysit a lot. Like I laugh at fart jokes, and like I not saying you're immature if you like these things, but like I play Pokemon Go, and like I love to color with little kids, and I just certain aspects of my life I'm very immature, but like other aspects, like I've had people tell me before, like you seem very mature when it comes to this, but like I don't think it's the effort I put in, it was the situation I was forced into. Like I don't think it was, you know, I tried really hard to become mature. It was the only option. Like, sorry. But
No. Okay. I want to ask this question. There's two thoughts here. You've brought it up a couple of times. I would love to touch on this. When you were younger, you'd made mention that your parents got divorced. They were separated at first certain time, and then they got back together. What impact did that have? First off, when they got divorced, and then your dad was living in Maryland, you guys were still in Hershey. The first question is, what impact did that have in your young? First, how old were you? And then take us through that impact that it had in your life. And then the follow-up question is going to be, what the heck, when you now are they're back together, what happened? Like, take us through that journey.
yeah. So it's really important to me that like I honor my mother and my father kind of in talking about this situation. And like there are certain aspects like I'm just not going to share just you know, because my dad is dead, and you know I want to respect him, and he can't really defend himself, or you know, and also to respect my mom because he's been dead 2.5 years now, because November, or maybe a little less. But I was probably in 7th or 8th grade when it happened. And it was a very kind of volatile situation. It just happened one day, you know, my mom and me and my sisters, we went and moved in with my friend for a couple weeks, and my dad stayed at the family house. And then I don't know all the details because I was young. But my dad basically moved out of the state. He worked for Verizon at the time and got a new job through Verizon. And that's something I really respect about my dad, is he was such a hard worker. Like my family started out in a trailer, and then we, at kind of the height of his career, we lived on the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. And, you know, there's a point in my dad's life where he bought a Porsche, and like we had a boat, and like, you know, those are worldly things that don't really, status doesn't matter to me, but like kind of seeing how my dad really worked hard for his daughters and his wife. Even though they did get divorced and back together, like I really respect that. And part of the process of the divorce, my dad struggled with alcoholism. And, you know, that was kind of a hush hush thing that I started talking about more recently, because even though my dad never talked a lot about it, I feel like as his daughter, I have a right to talk about how his alcoholism impacted me. And then maybe also talking about it, I could save someone else from losing their dad at 50 from liver failure. And part of it was I had to go to court. They didn't bring me in, but I had to kind of talk about some of my experiences growing up. And I think to kind of help my mom keep custody of us. And part of it is I'm pretty sure they forced us to do like some kind of court appointed therapy, which it was like play therapy. This lady was, I just remember I didn't like her. Like she wanted me to like stack blocks and talk about my childhood. And I was like, I don't even know you, lady. Like what? So it was a very weird time for me. Because, you know, I was old enough where I wanted to know what is happening, but I was young enough that my parents wanted their own privacy and they wanted to keep my innocence. Because I was like still in middle school. And so we kind of, I don't remember how often it was, but we'd go visit my dad like at least monthly on the weekends and stuff. And honestly, it was awesome because like my dad would take us to Dave and Buster's, and we would just go play video games, and like we'd go bowling, and like it was very weird because like now that I'm married and now that I'm an adult, there are certain behaviors my dad had that like I would never want my children to witness that in a spouse. But like, you know, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like his dad died young from ALS. His dad was 59 when he died. And so that was when I was like in elementary school. And then when my parents were divorced, his mom died as well. She died in her sleep from diabetes. So like my dad was a very strong man, and we didn't talk about our feelings a lot. But I do, looking back, I think he deeply regretted those 2 years he was apart from his wife and children. And that's kind of right. The reason they got back together, I think, is like my mom and dad got married. They were like 19 and 22 or 18, and they were young, you know, they were each other's like real first love. Like, so, and I applaud my parents for doing that, for kind of during the divorce, talking about things. And it was better when they got back together. But kind of me being a teenager and just my personality, I was like, I am not moving back in with my dad. And that was probably one of the hardest conversations I've had outside of picking up my younger sister and telling her that my dad was put on a ventilator and he's going to die today, was when I had that conversation with my dad. Like, we sat down and my dad asked me, he said, Taylor, you know, we had this conversation, and he's like, Taylor, like, are you calling me a bad dad? And I kind of was just like, yeah, like my dad would have been an amazing dad for adults. And that's why I'm so mad he died when he did. Cause like he knew the stock market, buying houses, very, very, very business smart guy. Like I'm doing my taxes tomorrow, and I'm mad because I hate doing taxes. I'm freaking out. I'm doing it wrong. Like, I wish he was alive to talk about. But kind of growing up, I felt like my dad, I think, went to 1 or 2 of my swim meets my whole life. And, you know, part of that was he was working his butt off to provide for us. But some of it too was he was watching sports at a sports bar or something. And it's just like, I felt like in high school, my dad loved alcohol more than me. And that's something I really struggled with. And it just really stunk. I watched, after I moved out of college, my younger sister went through the same thing, because we noticed he was getting sick, and we were like, Dad, like, you need to quit drinking. And he was like, I'm fine. So like, seeing my younger sister be like, my dad, why is he picking alcohol over me? And like, it's just very complex. And, you know, I told my parents, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to emancipate myself. When I was 16, I looked into becoming a minor who was emancipated. And looking back, like, obviously it didn't happen, and it wasn't a smart idea, especially because we didn't know I had Ehlers-Danlos at the time, but I would not have been able to afford my healthcare with all my physical therapy. So my bargaining chip in the divorce was I got a dog. That was kind of the deal. I moved to Maryland and I got Chloe, my dog. And, you know, once I got into college, I feel like my relationship with my dad did get a lot better. Because, you know, I was an adult now, and I kind of, me and my dad, I think we have similar personalities, maybe, per se. So like, we kind of would clash a lot. Like, we're both really stubborn. And I had a lot of pent up resentment because, you know, I went to Hershey, and like, a lot of my friends were absolutely, by the world standards, rich. Like, I have a friend who got a Jeep for her 16th birthday. I know another friend's brother who got, like, I don't know if it was a Mustang or something, but for his birthday. So like, I was like, okay, well, my parents kind of told me, you do your own thing, you go to college, pick it, you know, you do your own FAFSA. I did everything myself. And then I picked Loyola, which was like, I forget if it was 50,000 or 40 or 60,000, but it is expensive a year. And I remember the day I told my dad, like, I just committed to swim at Loyola. I'm so excited. He Googled it and said, what is wrong with you? How are you going to afford that? And I was like, what, you're not going to pay for my college? Like, I'm your daughter, you know, you need to take care of me. Like, that was kind of my mindset, you know, that really entitled. So we had some strife when I was in college. You know, I'd go and cry to I cry a lot, if you haven't noticed, but I went to financial aid. I'm like, I'll do a work study, I'll get a job, like, please. Like, I did get some grants for my grades. And I had a significant portion through FAFSA and a Pell Grant and through my GPA getting it paid, but still I was able to get out of college. I think it's still frozen with Biden, $13,500. So like, I'm super grateful. And my dad did help me, you know, so I am very privileged, 100%. But yeah, no, that was some strife. And then COVID happened, and I moved back in with my parents. And, me, even though I didn't go to med school, I do consider myself to have some of a medical background. I worked as a scribe for a while, and I kind of noticed like there's something wrong with my dad. Like I noticed his eyes were really gummy, and sorry, that sounds nasty. They were a little yellow. So it's like, Dad, like, hey, remember like my stomach burst. And then when I moved to Indiana, I was doing a bunch of swallow studies because I have my duodenum did not heal correctly, but it hasn't really given me issues. So I told him like, IU's great. The doctors there are great. Like they've done endoscopies on me. Like I love them. They have a great hepatology unit. You should go get your liver enzymes looked at. And he was like, I'm fine. And me and my husband started dating, and I feel bad because like my husband's met my dad only like 2 or 3 times. Because my husband went into the Army when we were dating, but we went on vacation to go camping, and I got a message from my mom who was like, hey, your dad wasn't feeling good. So I took him to the ER, and I was like, there's something bad. Because my dad, he was that, I don't want to stereotype men, but he was the kind of man who never goes to the doctor. And 2 years prior, I'm sorry, 2 years prior, he had a really high blood pressure incident, and they told him like, hey, you have alcoholic liver disease. Like you're in starting stages. And he was like in denial. Like me and my younger sister tried to talk to him about it. And my mom sent over his labs, and I looked down at them, and I was like, how is this man alive? So kind of to dumb it down and make it short. So basically when your liver's failing, they give you a MELD score, which is like something end stage liver disease. I forget what it stands for. And it's from 0 to 40. If I remember correctly, if it's 34 to 40, your chance of living the next 3 months is like 30% or something. So that's 34 to 40. And his was like 46. His liver enzymes were insane. His kidneys were insane. Like he literally looked like a highlighter when I went and saw him, which was crazy because the week before he did not look like that. But like when he went in the hospital, he quit drinking, and his body went into shock basically. And he never came home. He was in the hospital about maybe 2 months, and they put him in a nursing home for a little bit. And they were doing dialysis on him, and he just wasn't feeling well. And he skipped dialysis one time, and then he died like 2 days later. So that was really traumatic for me because even though we were only dating at the time, I knew about like 2 months after dating my husband, I was going to marry him. And he was in basic training and could only call me once a week. And he called me on a Saturday. My dad died on a Sunday, and then he called me on Saturday again. And during that phone call, he called me, and I was like, hey, Jay, like we buried my dad yesterday, and it really sucked. And, my dad was very private about his medical health stuff because he was healthy, quote unquote. And then he went to the hospital, and like, he never came home after 2 months, and he didn't really do Facebook or anything. So a lot of people didn't know that he was sick. And, like realizing my dad, when I have kids, is never going to be there as grandpa. And, he started to get into my swimming. Like I really wanted my dad to kind of have that relationship, like as a father-daughter, like you come to my swim meets and you support me. And like, I didn't get that. And, it just really sucked because I remember telling him in college, I was like, Dad, I think the way you're drinking, you're going to die. I don't think you're going to see me graduate from college. And that happened. And it just like, I don't want to rub it in his face or anything, which I can't, cause he's dead, but like, it just sucks that I was right in that sense. And like, to see him go through a lot of personal growth and treat my mom better and treat us better, all for him to die at 50, it was terrible. And then, me with my health issues, a factor in me deciding to have children is like, I don't want to run my body in the ground so I die when I'm 50 and my kids have to go through like what I had to go through. And that's one of the factors why I didn't go to med school, because I was like, my dad, wasn't around a lot when I was younger because he was working really hard, but he was also drinking. So like, what, my kids aren't going to care if I tell them like, oh, mommy can't go to your recital because she has to go do surgery. Like, yeah, that's a very valiant job. And I don't want to knock doctors. Like, doctors can be amazing moms. But with my health issues and kind of all the time, my pain and rehab, and I do physical therapy on and off all the time. Like, I just didn't think I could give my kids the life they deserved if I did choose to do that. But yeah, no. So the divorce happened at the end of middle school. They got back together my junior year of high school. And then my dad died my senior year of college. So it was my life from ages like 14 to 21 was just not really typical. And, you know, I hope that me and my husband being Christians and me trying to take good care of my health, like my kids won't go through something similar, but you never know. So, yeah.
First off, you know, thank you so much, Taylor, for being open and bringing us into your world and your space and bringing us into a part of your life that's very hard. You can see this emotional roller coaster that you've been, you know, the highs of highs, and then these deep lows and the dark times, not only from just your own, but wanting this relationship with your dad, just be like, hey, can you see me? And then it starts to come back up like all roller coasters do. And you're like, okay, you're getting better. And then you're like, you got to stop. And then you have these little bumps and bumps as roller coasters do. And allowing us to get into that space and sharing, because I know your story is going to impact millions of people, not just in the US, but globally. And you're going to have thousands of young little girls that are like, I'm disabled. I'm handicapped. I can't do this. My body hurts. My stomach doesn't work right. My back is messed up. My bones hurt. My joints aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm going to college, and I'm a freak that goes to college because I have red hair, which you probably just stood out even more because of your red hair, and then your cane, and then you get to college and you're like, no one is going to find me. You are living a Cinderella-esque story. You may not think that. You may not see that. You may not, because you live in it every single day. You're in the mud or in the mire every single day. But I can tell you from the outside, when looking in, you're living an amazing princess story, which I've got girls. And so they all, you know, the princess story is what they love. And you are not only changing the scope of what a princess looks like, you're defining and saying there are more than just one way of a Disney princess. There's all these other ways of being a princess. And my gosh, the fact that you've actively chosen to not allow your circumstances dictate who you are, that's how we have this wonderful conversation. That's how we are here today, because you have chosen to be the best version of yourself always, not without hard times, not without pain, not without, you know, choices that you would be like, man, I wish it would just all go away. But because you have this innate ability to just keep pursuing and pushing. Good night. This interview is great because I get to go back and listen to it before anybody else does. Holy God, life! I'm floored. I'm absolutely blown away. And thank you for being so open and honest. Thank you. I need to ask this. Give us one or two principles that have helped you to not quit.
Ooh, I think, you know, my biggest one that has really helped in And, you know, when I wasn't a Christian, it didn't make sense. And I think sometimes, like, if you're not religious looking in, like, it sounds like it doesn't make sense. But, like, being a Christian, like, has impacted every single aspect of my entire life. Like, it has helped me so much. You know, one of my big things, which doesn't make sense because my dad was an alcoholic, you know, and I hate alcohol, but I still crave it often. And, you know, in college, I had times where my pain was bad, or when my boyfriend broke up with me, whatever, I would drink a bunch of beer really fast and get drunk. It doesn't make sense. You know, I think kind of other aspects of addiction runs in my family. So like I will have a bad day, or I'm driving and I'm like, man, I just want to go like get really drunk right now. And that's not a healthy coping mechanism. But, you know, the Bible teaches us that, you know, being sober minded is a really important thing. And so I've taken that to heart. And I know kind of with my addictive personality, I would not be able to have one beer and stop there. Like the only reason why I drink is to get drunk. So I have not drank since I got baptized. And, you know, part of the Bible is it teaches us that, you know, whatever you do, glorify God and treat others the way you want to be treated, you know, and I try to exemplify or try to be like Jesus. And that's helped me, you know, forgive people. It's helped me forgive my dad. And I feel like I can't remember if I had a conversation with him before he died where I really sat next to his bed and I was like, I forgive you for everything you've done in my life. There are still aspects of my childhood that affects my marriage and affects my thought process. And it's hard for my husband to understand, like, I've forgiven my dad, but I wouldn't say I have PTSD, but there are some things that like I struggle with a lot. And one of them is confrontation. And especially when people get upset, like if they wish my husband like doesn't yell at me, but like if you raise your voice, like I'm really sensitive to that. And kind of the principle of really not saying you're a Christian, but like actually being one, which is another conversation. But that's helped me a lot, and it's kind of helped me process my pain as well, you know, trying not to pick on those unhealthy coping mechanisms. Cause you know, I'm being open and honest today. There are days where my back has bothered me so bad where I'm like, maybe I could have an accident and like break my leg and they'll give me narcotics and then my back won't hurt. And like that is so bad, you know, that is so like, I have not taken narcotics for my back and my dad would not let me. And at the time I was so mad at him. I'm like, I'm suffering so bad, but I am so glad he didn't, because I 100% I would become addicted to pain medicine. After my stomach perforated, I was on Dilaudid for a while and I think hydrocodone, and like some of the best sleep I've had since I broke my back. But, you know, I had no issues weaning off of it. But, you know, for people who do have any kind of drug addiction, I understand 100%. Like after my stomach burst and they gave me that Dilaudid, I was so high for 3 days. I didn't even know I had a catheter in. Like I totally understand how people can become addicted to pain medicine. As someone with chronic pain. Okay, that was a random tangent. And then I kind of think my second principle is, you know, give yourself the benefit of the doubt. And I've been trying to work more on self-talk. And like, I read something that's like, the person you listen to the most in your life is yourself, you know, your thought processes. So like, if I have a bad swim meet, you know, it's not going to help me if I think like, oh, you're so dumb, or why'd you sleep in this one day, or why didn't you make your diet better? You know, like that's not productive. That's not going to help you be faster at your next meet. It's just going to make you feel like a load of poop, you know, like you're terrible. And, you know, that helps. Kind of sports psychology is super interesting to me, but, you know, be nice to yourself. Like we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. You know, I make a lot of mistakes all the time, every day. I'm super impulsive and that's something I'm trying to work on. But, you know, like, unless you're actually doing really, really bad things, you know, you're probably a good person. Like that doesn't sound super reassuring, but like, you know, in your heart, if you're doing like, what am I trying to say? You know, in your heart, what your intentions are. So like, there are things before I've tried to do something I thought was really nice and it was executed poorly. And I was like, well, I shouldn't do that again. But like, I know in my heart it came from the right place, but I need to do it different next time. But yeah.
Unbelievable. You look, find God, find religion, find some spirituality. I love 100%, right? If you are Christian, right, follow the 2 greatest commandments. What are they, right? Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your might, mind, soul. The second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself, like yourself. That's the first principle. And then Taylor taught us, be more kind to yourself. Be a lot more kind to yourself. Oh my gosh. We're come to the part where I hate, because we have to be respectful of your time. So please tell us where we can find, how we can reach out to you. How can we find your journey? And if people want to support you, please tell us how we can do that.
Yeah. So I'm really most active on Instagram. My Instagram is just my name. So TAYLOR_WINNETT. And, you know, some great places you can support are just US Paralympic swimming in general. Get the word out, you know, be inclusive, accept people with disabilities. And, you know, I hope there are no kids out there who are like me, who thought, once I acquired my disability, like, I'm just not going to do anything with my life. And, you know, sports are a great avenue for people with disabilities. Because obviously most of us, except for certain disabilities, also have a lot of comorbidities and other health issues. So being healthy, having a healthy BMI is really important. It helps with your life expectancy. It helps with your mental health. And then a couple other things I'm really passionate about are kind of the avenue of adoption. My husband and I hope to adopt. I want 4 kids one day. So I would love to adopt 4 kids. And remember, you know, adoption, no matter where it starts, is always trauma, whether you adopt from birth or through foster care or internationally. And, you know, kind of another random tangent, but trauma-informed parenting is really great. Just even in society, like, be nice to people. You don't know what happened to them in their life. And then I'm also really passionate about, like I said, disability rights, but, you know, just sobriety and kind of celebrating sobriety. And, you know, I think we live in a culture that's really, really drug saturated, especially alcohol. And sometimes people think you're weird because you don't drink, but that's fine if you don't drink. I don't drink. I don't think you're weird. You know, my dad was an alcoholic. I'm Christian, and, you know, there are many reasons why people don't drink. And I know someone whose mom died from drunk driving. So, you know, whatever your reason is to not drink, like, I support that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think peer pressure.
Look, peer pressure. You need to tell Jay after this. Go ahead and say, look, Cameron said you got to give me the biggest hug ever. Because we can't. I'm just saying it because people listen to this and like, I hope that man gives her a big hug. Guys, we are going to have all the links. You can follow her. That's how I love social media for that aspect, because that's how we connected. I have followed your story. It is going to be so awesome to watch you swim. 2024, you're going to swim. 2025, your book is going to come out. You have not said that, but I am saying this. Your book's going to come out in 2025, and we are going to be even more inspired because of what you're writing. You may not want to write, but too bad. You're going to write a book because you need this all. People go, well, listen to this, but you need to also write it down, and so people can read it and just feel the emotional, raw passion and energy from it. Taylor, wow. Before I let you go, as we wrap up, if you were to see your 5-year-old self today, what do you think she would say to you?
Oh, man. So I babysit a lot. That's kind of my side gig while I work out. And usually when a 5-year-old first walks up to me, just in public, they usually say, you know, what's on your legs? I wear leg braces from breaking my back because I have drop foot, like my feet are like noodles, basically. So she'd look at me and be like, well, why why are you wearing leg braces? And, I explained to her, and I dumb it down and really short for kids. I'm like, I broke my back and these help me walk. I don't know, man. If I were 5 and I saw me now, I would be like, I need to be nicer to my dad and to my parents. And I am going to go through a lot of things. But I think if I were a Christian before this all happened, that would have made it easier for me. And I think if I would have accepted that it's okay to see someone for mental health quicker, that would have helped me a lot. I think I hope she would be excited. Because I made it. And I don't want that to sound like cocky or whatever. But like I made it through college and I decided to live. And, like I feel like from here on out, like with all I've been through in life, like honestly, this is a terrible thing to say, but what can get worse? Like so much bad has happened. And like compared to some other people's lives, like my life is very boring and very non-traumatic. Like I don't want to make it sound like my life was like some big trauma, like dump. But, I do think some things happen to me that is not normal for a 23-year-old. And yeah, so like, my dad can't die again. He's already dead, so I don't have to go through that again. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That sounds so bad when it came out. But I'm already disabled. I can get more disabled, but like you're already disabled, so it's, what's another whatever. Like it's yeah, I don't know.
The sarcastic approach is awesome. Taylor, you are an absolute gem. You're living a fairy tale life. I cannot wait for the time when you fully understand and fully believe that. It may not be now, may not be for years to come, but you are living a life that most kids are like, I could totally dream and see myself doing that. Before I let you go, I ask everybody this. I need your top 5 books that you would recommend anyone to read. Top 5 could be personal development, business, mindset, the Bible, whatever, but just your top 5.
Okay, so I actually put them over here because like my memory is really bad. But you got my first one. I always recommend reading the Bible, especially just the New Testament and the Gospels, because it's when from the outside looking in, I'll be honest, it sounds out there. Like you really believe that the Son of God was born and was resurrected. And, just through the Gospels, it has changed my life so much. It's amazing when you surrender your life and, get baptized, and it's just, my life is so different now. Like if I think back, like if I was not a Christian, I really worry what my life would have been like, just because of the mindset I was in. But a book I recommend, it's called Adopted for Life, which I've only read it once. And I need to read it again because it's really deep. But the first couple chapters kind of talk about how, as brothers and sisters and children of God, like we're adopted in a sense. And it's really interesting, just kind of from like a biblical historical perspective, but like the gut of the book is really cool. This dude adopted 2 kids from Russia or Ukraine, I forget. And he talks about, what that's like, kind of microaggressions his kids face from other people, like, for example, well, are they real brothers? Are they your real kids? Because he has biological kids too. So like this has helped me kind of get ready to adopt. Book's really cool. It's called Brain on Fire. It's also a Netflix movie if you like movies. It's about a girl who gets like a brain infection. I forget the exact word for it. Encephalitis or something. But like she basically talks about how like medically her doctors did not believe her for a while, and they actually thought she might have been schizophrenic or bipolar, but it was literally her body was attacking her own brain. So like she literally like was having seizures and like really concerning like mental health stuff. So it's pretty cool. And then this one is, did I only pick 4 books? Oh, okay, I remember. Harry Potter. I didn't get those out. I love Harry Potter. I haven't read them in ages, but it's the creativity to come in those books is really cool. And then the last one, this has not been released yet. It actually is going to be released on the 21st. I got a early copy from the publisher, but it's Oksana Masters' life story called The Hard Parts. And I am not sure what I'm allowed to reveal about this book because it's not released yet. But it's a great book, very heartbreaking and very inspiring for me. It says on the back, I can say that she was adopted and she's the most decorated winter Paralympian ever. So she kind of talks about being adopted, a little older, not super old, but older, 7-ish, I think. But, you know, she talks about how it's just a great book. You need to read it. Okay, please. I've never even met her in real life, but like, I feel like we're homies now because I read this book. I know so much about her now. But she's really cool. So.
Good night. We could talk for more. We could talk for longer, but we can't. We got to respect your time. Taylor, thank you. Thank you for today. When this releases, it is going to shatter people's way of living because of how you choose to live your life. This is going to be one that will be played for years and years and years and years to come. This has been amazing. It's been awesome. We'll have all the links. We'll have all the books. We'll have everything in here. We'll follow your journey. We'll support you. We love you. Thank you, Taylor, for being a part of this project, guys. Thank you for all the likes, the shares, the comments. This is one of the fastest. Again, remember, last year we were in the top 25 of the most shared globally. And this is why, because we bring people on that can tell the uncovering of who they are. Taylor, Winnett, thank you so much. Guys, it's been another one-of-a-kind interview on the Art Study of You. Have a great day. We'll catch you on the next episode.